Well, good morning, gardeners and homesteaders. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. And if you've clicked on this video, you've either had issues with your seed starting, maybe your seedlings are looking a little weird or funny, or you're trying to figure out what's going on with them, or maybe you're anticipating an issue, which is totally healthy and normal. Just to give you a quick 10-second update, we are going to this weekend actively be amending this bed and this bed and getting them ready for planting soon. So let's just start from the bottom and work our way up. Let's say that you've planted your seeds and you're not seeing anything. What's going on there? Why are they not germinating? What's the problem? Well, a couple things. One, either the certain type of seed, which we did a video about that previously, I'll link to at the end for you. Maybe the seed needed some heat and it's just taking a little bit of extra time. So there is that aspect of it. Two, maybe you overwatered your seeds and they actually rotted in the cells. So, you know, if you're starting a seed that has a germination time of, let's say, average, they're 7 to 10 days, maybe on your 10th day, I got a little chopstick I'll show you when we go inside, because I've got a couple issues I want to show you, and I'll just start digging around a little bit, see if I can see a seed. And then the other thing is, you may have buried it too deeply. So maybe in fact it did germinate, but it cannot find the surface. And that's where digging around with that chopstick will help you, because if you just just real light, kind of move around, you have an idea of where the seed went, then that could help free it. You will see that as germinating, you just stop, leave it, and it'll come up. I've done that many, many, many times, which is why I keep a chopstick next to my seed starting shelf. And the final thing for it is, maybe when you got the seed in, you watered it too much and it dislodged and it moved around a little bit, and that's why you can't find a seed. So just be careful when you put your seeds in, you're watering them in, and that'll help you with that part. So that's basically why you're not seeing your seed. But there's so many other aspects to this that we can't stop here. Okay, so we're gonna come in here and look at our cabbage seedlings here. This is our last tray, and I'm actually about to take them outside after this video, of the Golden Acre heirloom cabbage. And it's the last one because the heirloom, or the hybrids, actually outgrew the heirloom. So we're just leaving these in for a little bit longer, but after this they're gonna start hardening off. But do you see here how we've got a little bit of discoloration? It's kind of hard to see on these upper leaves, but you can see on the edges here, that is a little bit of a nutrient deficiency. So you need to keep an eye out for this. And you know, once you start ramping up and you get really good growth like this, the technical term for it is colorosis. So it's a colorosis, it's a nitrogen deficiency generally. And again, we know that these are nitrogen hungry plants. So optimally what we would do is we would take these and feed them. But because I'm about to move them outside, I'm not going to feed them right now because the temperature could actually get a little funky and I don't want to push growth in the meantime. But this is a good indication. So if it's like really early on in the process and you're starting to get discoloration and yellowing, then you know that you probably need a little bit of fertilization. But it could also be overwatering. But I know in my case it's not overwatering. And I'm going to show you why in a second. But it's not overwatering. It's definitely a nutrition issue, which is easily corrected as a douse of fertilizer will do. And one of the reasons why, you know, because if you guys have seen the previous video I did about growing your own seedlings inside and really the step-by-step process, one of them was fertilization, and I used a slow release fertilizer. But I had an issue because these were growing so slow that I didn't need to water them that much. So I had to keep them drier, and that's where there is a downfall with it, where it didn't really release the fertilizer like it was supposed to. So I could come back and fertilize it with like a fish fertilizer or something like that, really diluted, and give a little boost, but I just opted not to. So the next issue is when you see stuff like this. So you see the wilted leaves, the drying, the impending death, doom. So this is generally an indication of a couple things. One is underwatering. So the first thing we can do is we can take and we can test and see this soil is wet. So it's not underwatered, and I haven't watered them in a couple days. So then you have to go to the next progress, which is like, what's the situation? And so we can pull on the seedling a little bit. It's in there nice. And you can even smell it. Like stick your finger in and then smell it. And so what that I can smell is root rot. So if I took that plant out, what I would see instead of nice white roots, I'm sure I would see black roots. Now I don't want to do that right here because I don't really want to mess up the rest of the 6-pack. I want to try and save what I can. But yeah, I can smell that the roots have started to rot, and that was another reason why we didn't water as much. So, and it was in particular this front tray that we have, this front 6-pack. And for whatever reason, sometimes it just happens. It just got too wet and stayed wet too long, and the roots just couldn't soak it up and they started to rot. And when that happens and you keep the water too wet, you also starve it of oxygen. So just be aware of that situation completely. So there is that issue. Now, the other one, which is totally fixable, but it's a very visible issue to see, is this down here. We've got 2 trays here. We've got rutabagas and we've got lettuces, and the lettuces are looking nice and good, but can you see, like these really see how they're leaning that way? That's indicative of not getting enough light. So the plant's going to naturally lean towards the light. Now I get this on this setup because my chain is not quite as long as it should be, and I need to kind of tweak it a little bit. I bet if I did this for a couple of days, like obviously I'm not going to sit here, but if I had this light like this for a couple of days, just tilted more, that you would see them start to stand up. So that will help with that and get that going. But that's an indication that it's not getting enough light. And a lot of times if you start plant seeds by a window or something like that, this is one thing that you'll really see. Now, once this plant gets bigger and it starts getting closer to the light and I start lifting it up, this will go away. And I know that about my seed shelf because I've been using it for so long. I do understand that these outside edges get that, and it's not a big deal. But you can see on this little one right here, same thing. But if we go over into the middle, you can see how they're sticking straight up. So we know that those are getting enough light and they're good to go. And there's no real major issue with that. So just keep an eye out for that. In my days, I've seen a lot of pictures of seedlings, and I've seen a lot of pictures of seedlings that are really long and leggy. You know, you generally get, my seedlings are leggy. They're just really long, and that's just not enough light. And so there's 2 ways you can fix that. One is obviously add more light, but the other one is turn your lights on longer. So I run my lights 18 hours on and 6 off. And that gives it just plenty of time. It seems to do just right. Some people do 16 hours. I prefer 18 because the more light, the better. And that keeps them from being leggy. Now, with some of these, like right here, what we will see is these may get just a little bit leggy until they start to reach a little bit closer to the light. And what we can do is you can always prop up, like I can't get my light any lower, so I could put something under here and just lift it up closer. Because ideally I'd want my seedlings to be I would want my light to be about that high off from the seedlings. So, you know, that would be ideal. But again, after using this for so long, I understand once they get going, it's not bad. The problem is when you get it so long that it goes up over and it'll just kind of lay down on the soil, there's almost no correcting it. So I just saw this, and this is my chopstick, and I actually broke it, so I had to sharpen it. But you can see in this one right here how we have a seedling that's just barely pushing up off the perlite. But let's say it was a little deeper, I would just move that out of the way just like that. And now that seedling's totally free to get enough light. I know it's hard to see because it's really small. And we have some other seeds. These are old seeds, so they're not germinating as fast. But like this one right here, we'll sacrifice, and we'll just lightly move this perlite away and see if we can't find a seedling in there, or at least a seed. And so I'm not seeing one just yet, but sometimes just doing this by itself will actually help you free that seed. and get it so you can get that light to get it up. So just keep that in mind as you use these and, you know, start seeds, that sometimes you may accidentally go a little deep. And even with the Paralight, like I've been preaching about and I love using so much, sometimes it happens, and you just do a little bit of that and see how I moved it, and there's still that divot. Now that seed has a better chance of coming out. We have to use our imagination for this because right now I'm not having this issue. I did have it in the late summer when I was starting my fall seeds. But let's say your seeds get about this high and then they shrivel up and die. That is a dampening off situation. A lot of times what that means is, well, from my experience, what it is either I had like a bottom heat on there and it was too hot and it just couldn't take it, or for me in particular in the summertime, because I was growing cool weather crops, I believe it was too warm and too dry in here to keep it going. So if I had a little bit more humidity maybe, or is a little cooler, something like that, it would have been better. But this room in particular in the summertime stays a little bit warm. And that's why I had to actually move into starting my seeds outdoors over the late summer in the shade, because I just had much better germination. But that could be an aspect, and that's why we did the video about, like, you don't need to have bottom heat for everything. And in general, like, you can more than likely grow a lot of plants without bottom heat, just depending on the temperature inside your house. And in the wintertime, mine's a lot cooler than most people's. So we definitely run bottom heat for like our peppers and stuff like that. Should get you started on your, you know, diagnosing issues and stuff like that. And I mean, really when it comes down to it and you're actively growing seedlings and you start to see issues, the best thing to do is understand what's going on and then make that change as soon as possible. Make it so you can kind of fix it, or you can rectify that situation or something, you know, and then you can reverse it. But if you wait too long, because they're babies, they're infants, you've got to protect them, you got to take care of them, and you just stay on top of it. Make those changes. If you've overfed, water a little bit more. If you've underfed, feed. If they need more light, turn on more lights, add more time, move the light closer, all these things, you know, and just adjust as needed. And in time, you will figure it out. It won't be a daunting process. You'll just start your seeds and be like, I'm starting seeds, and go through it. And that's what we want. And so coming up, what we'll do shortly when people start getting closer to moving things outside, which is going to be sooner than later, we're going to do one for the outdoor edition. It's going to be a lot shorter, but there are things to look for when you start moving your seeds outside, your seedlings, and then growing them.
Goodbye.